Hello and welcome. My name is Richard Miller. You're at Never Not Here, and I'm glad you could drop by. And for 4.5 years, I've got myself into opportunities to speak with, I wouldn't say as many people as I could, but I don't really back off either. I could probably really go for it, knowing what an extremist I am. But and maybe someday I will. But I mean, I'm just trying to see, well, what is really the outcome of a lot of verbalization, and in a way, that's what we're all doing. Somehow, our life is built of relationships, and we could say it's more than just our speech, more than just our language. And of course it is. It's everything. Just because you're talking doesn't shut everything else down. And whatever the magic of life is, it's still what's animating us. And I guess I'm just wondering if we add some language and we talk about things and we try to explain our experiences, does that make any difference to another person? And of course, we all like a good story, and it's a huge industry. Storytelling industry is huge. And in some senses, maybe it keeps us where we are, and in some senses, maybe it liberates us from where we think we are. And language is used for all those purposes. So I guess I'm a philosophical guy because I like to try to figure out, like, well, what's going on here. And I could really get into it. So before I get too far down the rat hole, I'll just say, hello, Pamela Wilson.
Hello,
and thanks
hello.
for coming over.
Oh, my pleasure. It's good to be with you.
So sometimes we've had some long distance connections, but one time we were in one of those TV studios even.
I remember.
Yeah, that was scary, huh? I was trying to figure out how to do it, so I was scared, I guess, but it was kind of pretty neat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so here we are. What should we be curious about?
There's so many things that we could go into, because like a lot of people want to know, well, how did it all happen in the past, and when you search your memory, what were the key points? What were the turning points? And let me just list a few before we kind of just jump into it. And so then, in a way, that's the story, right? All my turning points and how it happened to me, and I guess it seems like there's a lot of interest in that, because when you listen to people speak, a lot of times they include a lot of that material, and then sometimes people like me force them. And say, "Oh, tell me what happened." Tell me what, how you got to, what were you like as a kid, and all this stuff.
But it's kind of sweet because everybody's life is a parable for what is, So it doesn't, everybody can speak of this, and their intimate knowing of this, and then the apparent forgetting, and then the apparent remembering, But it does make for a really good story because it kind of invites everybody to notice that we're all the same. So
sometimes that works, but sometimes we think that somebody's story is really exceptional, and that mine could never add up to that. It never could be that good. And I suggest that the really exceptional gurus and masters, and the ones that have even hundreds of thousands of people following them, and because of that they probably have a huge protocol around them, and even that kind of makes it feel like they're even more on a higher platform. And I would have to say that my sharing, especially from doing Never Not Here, is that I've gotten way more out of what I call emerging teachers than I ever got out of the ones that were spot on, most popular, commercially successful.
Well, that's resonance for you, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
So
and also I like having close contact, and if that's a very specific role, a mass teacher, so to speak. And I've been lucky that with my messengers or teachers that they were small enough that I could hang out with them, and then that helps drop the projections and the comparing function and the hierarchy and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely attracted to that too. And sometimes I make a go for a more popular teacher, and then I probably say, "See, I told you it wouldn't work." They're all commercial over there. They want the big bucks. If I was Oprah, I could get them.
Well, it's pretty mysterious because the nature of the identified mind is to protect preciousness. So that'll happen with a mass teacher. If there's a lot of devotion, then there'll be these sort of protective, friends around them. And then
let's just say that again, because that was really had a really great ring to it. The nature of
the identified
mind is to protect.
Yeah.
Would you call it specialness, or did you call it preciousness?
Preciousness. So whatever it perceives to be precious, it'll move to defend it. So if it's an apparent teacher or the great new baseball pitcher or the great, who knows, cellist, there'll be all of a sudden people that come around those people and try and keep them a little bit separate to be safe. It's just the nature of how the mind defends. Yeah. So we see it with the mass teachers. They're hard to get close to because there's very well-meaning friends going, "Oh, you can't touch them," and "Oh, you can't,"
Right. Well, at a certain point, it makes sense because it's like there's just too much. It's just too much. I mean, the president is shaking everyone's hand. I don't, not really, but in a way, wouldn't I've heard people say, "Well, that's what a cult is." In other words, a cult is when you take something and you separate it and build a wall around it and say, "And we're special," and then a cult could be a baseball cult. We could just be talking about the Cubs or something like that, or anything else, or especially a religion or a spiritual figure too. And I'm not saying that's bad or good, but I'm just kind of defining that as like maybe.
Yeah, it's also just a kind of, once again, the echo of functions in the mind when it doesn't know its true nature, because doesn't it do it to us as well? It thinks because we're openness that somehow we're frail and thus we need more vigilant services and all that sort of thing. It's just an unexamined habit, I think.
Right, but I'm really for that. I'm totally on your wavelength. I think you're talking about vulnerability and how people say that I want to be vulnerable, but there's pain there, and they just believe that pain and vulnerability are the same thing, basically.
That's nicely said, yeah. And they don't realize that vulnerability has an absolute strength in it.
Right. Well, in a way, it reminds me of a willow tree or something that can bend in the wind, right? But vulnerability is even better than a willow tree because it's like transparent. Like, shoom, in one side, out the other, boy.
Oh, the wind goes right through it.
Right.
Yeah, nice.
So then some people don't like stories, both, stories have a bad rap sometimes, although no matter what we're saying, we're telling a story, but, personal stories, let's say. And then so some teachers or, some guests or some presenters or some people would just say, well, tell us what's practical. In other words, then we talk about how I deal with individuals and always on an individual basis, and I don't have a dogma or a teaching, but and then I can somehow suggest people are doing practices and stuff, and and many times I could suggest that your life is your practice, and just get in sync with what's coming up now, and so then you can talk about the practicality of how since I'm a presenter of let's call it freedom, I'm a presenter of freedom. How does that actually activate? How does that freedom? How can you touch that in a more succinct way? Or
well, that since as awareness we have a tendency to notice what's out here, so to speak. It rarely turns around inside and gets curious about itself or the substratum. You know, that's what's so fun for me about what's called satsang is that just a few words and an invitation like that, just to look within and look behind the scenes, so to speak, and then people get it like right away, because the training is always just to be gazing and noticing out here, the so-called world.
You can say it's easy for people to turn it around once they get the idea of what it means, but I'll bet you, just looking from my own experience, that many people maybe they think they got it, they know they don't have it, they puzzle over it, they think they got it, no they don't, no that ain't it, and they puzzle over it, and really somehow it's not all that clear.
But that which is puzzling is probably what we call the mind, right? Yeah, because the mind has higher standards than just awareness or gazing has. The mind wants something, it's been trained to look for forms and for something that's constant and measurable in form. And here it's invited to look for something that has no form, it's immeasurable, it's ever present, but it often likes to rest back in the unmanifest. So it sort of gave itself a great treasure hunt with very little clues. And in that sort of, you know, curiosity, it starts to notice that maybe the value is not, the ultimate value may not be in form, because it was trained.
Well, it's not really going to find a formless, right? Because it doesn't have, it doesn't really identify things without form.
Well, actually, the mind can notice. The mind can notice.
Can notice absence, or
well,
what?
Absolutely, it notices absence, doesn't it? And it notices.
Gee, I don't know. It just checks in later and said, "What happened that last hour?" You know. But is that noticing? What is it? You know, it does that. It's not really noticing it, is it?
Huh. I don't know. I think it notices more than we give it credit for. Because some of the initial pointing out instructions are that the mind don't touch it, don't worry about it, let it just be itself. And I had this idea in the past that the mind actually couldn't realize its true nature, that it would be forever, so to speak, crystallized in that form that it wasn't happy with. So I was really surprised to find out that wasn't true.
But you say its true nature.
Mm-hmm.
So then, does that mean true nature?
Yeah.
Or mind's true nature is true nature?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go into that one a little.
That's my favorite. Yeah. Yeah, so we notice, and the mind knows that it's intelligent, right? Yeah.
Well, you know, let's not go too fast.
Right. Here you have this bright, shiny, quicksilver intelligence. It's very evident in you. Yeah, and the mind can notice that about itself. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's say what it is a little bit. Let's just say like what the intelligent part is. Like, I mean, there's things like memory, and there's things like pattern recognition, and there's things like spatial orientation, and what? Let's say a few things. I would
say those are kind of like the byproducts of the keen intelligence that is mind. It has it pretty much is deeply aware and notices stuff. It exhausts itself through being vigilant. It doesn't need to do that, but what I like showing...
It also gets juice out of being vigilant, right? But you're saying it exhausts itself, too.
Oh, maybe, yeah. I hadn't noticed that.
Well, when you're young and excited about everything, and you feel like you got a ton of energy, and you're just going to go out and conquer the world forever and ever and ever, you know. And then later you say, this is too long to be conquering the world.
Yeah, so it runs out of steam.
Right. When you notice that it takes steam to do it. But just maybe the way we do it, because we do it with a lot of waste, you know, with a lot of anxiety and stuff like that, and a lot of force, you know. And if we could just learn to do it with no force, maybe then it's pure pleasure and pure simplicity.
Yeah, so if the mind knows it's intelligent and it's curious, yeah. Now both those are formless. Yeah, intelligence is formless, curiosity is formless. It's not like they're objects floating around. I have a curious
No,
object.
no, I'm getting,
Yeah,
like I
absolutely.
want to go slow on intelligence, and I don't want to just jump on the boat of intelligence and say, of course, we got intelligence. I just want to say, well, what are the parameters of it? What are does it have any qualities? And you said, okay, it has curiosity,
Interesting.
it has
Keenness
keenness, which
means
means
very aware.
it can focus.
It's
Does keenness
crisp.
mean it can focus and change focus quickly, or what?
That word for me, focus, points to something it's been conditioned into. That might be the way I'm using the word, because focus means to take something that's naturally like this and go. Now it'll do that through its natural interest. It'll almost like draw its focus, I guess.
Focus is your attention, right? That's how I use it. But that's what you're
Okay.
saying. And then you tied it to interest, and I think that's brilliant because interest is what determines our focus, and why
Yeah,
you and I have a different focus because we have different interests.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that all of that is formless, like even focus is formless. So already mind could notice that its nature is formless. And it's actually ever present. Even when it's resting, there's no loss of intelligence or curiosity or.
Even when it's asleep? We're not so sure about all that, huh?
Well, I
But I
mean,
mean, the part of mind that runs the body, the
you see?
autonomic nervous system
Yeah.
and stuff is totally intelligent and totally working.
Yeah. So we have lots of ideas, or I certainly had lots of ideas about the mind that weren't accurate upon deeper reflection or noticing.
Since we're excavating the foundations, I want to kind of go in a way, and let's see if I can throw. I've never really stated this, but let me see if I can somehow put it out there. But we have this apparatus, right, which just kind of distinguishes humanity from other life forms. We think,
Nice.
we're
I'm
not so
glad
sure,
you
really.
added that.
Yeah, we think, or we say, or it seems like it's so many orders of magnitude more. It seems like, anyhow. And so then this apparatus has a kind of a way to take pictures in a photo album. And then that photo album is really good at also having a lot of info with each photo, which means like there's labels and meanings and feelings and decisions and all these things somehow, and histories. So then we come up with these histories. So I was just thinking the other day, like mind is just our device, and what it must do, what it's destined to do, what it was made to do, is to recognize patterns or create patterns. Because maybe if I say recognize patterns, then we have to believe that the patterns are already there. They're already out there. And we know that in some sense we're recognizing a pattern because of how we saw it yesterday. There's an interpretive bias there that's saying that, oh yeah, there's that pattern again. And so then patterns is like who I am. Is the pattern that keeps coming back at me is who I believe I am. And where does it come from? Well, I mean, mind is vast, let's say. Whatever this mind thing is, we don't know really where the edges are, And then things bubble up. And so then it means bubble up means like we're not noticing, and then we notice, right? And then we never really notice all the stuff that could bubble up until we do, right? And then that's kind of the focus of wide and narrow and all that stuff. But in the non-noticed mind, we just call it unconscious because it's not in our conscious, right? It's not really a place, or it's not any different. It's all the same mind, but we're just not noticing it. So then there's some kind of driving force that's running our lives that we're not noticing. And it keeps coming up, and we think, God, that must be real, right?
But you know what I'm fascinated about is why what we call the mind likes structure and form and patterns. I'm just wondering if it likes that because its nature is formless, and pattern and structure and all that is fascinating to it. And that's how it kind of adorns itself, because basically it's formless. So it puts that clothing on to lend itself more can't really say density, but more existence, maybe.
Yeah, more existence, because what comes to me is that mind can't really grasp things that don't have form or that don't have a label. A label is just a recognition of a boundary, right? And any kind of a boundary, it can either be physical or it can just be conceptual. And then we can put a word to it. Every word is a boundary, basically. It's a nickname for a set of boundaries.
I like that nickname.
Yeah, it's a
Not
kind of
the
a
real
sound
name.
that can. It's kind of a sound that can get us into recall a whole series of images and a whole. And without, I'm thinking that the primitive man or the animals surely have images, but they don't have that many names with them, or they don't have that many. Okay, all these names are what I call abstract, and abstract to me just doesn't mean like modern painting, just lines and jagged things, and that doesn't have any meaning. Abstract just means it's not here now. It's not really in front of my face, because like an animal, I think, only deals with what's in front of its face. Oh, like an amoeba.
Yeah,
Amoeba just.
we don't really know that, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd have to interview.
Yeah, we'd have
Flash.
to interview Flash.
Or all
Okay,
these-
well, I mean, it's a proposal. It's a proposal, a work in progress,
It could be.
Okay,
it
let
could
them
be
do it too,
hearsay.
I don't
Yeah.
care, but maybe let them do it, let them have abstractions, but they don't really usually get worried about their bank balance and stuff like that.
Very smart. They don't even go there.
They don't even have a bank balance. They
Right.
just say, my master's taking care of all that for me.
Just need a little food and shelter, and that's good enough.
Right,
Some
right.
friendship and love. Yeah.
Well, like the Flash, the dog upstairs, is laid back, and so he's not really counting the hours and saying, "Oh, I'm wasting my life just laying here. I could be out chasing a bone or finding a rabbit or something."
What's my purpose?
Yeah, what's my purpose in life? Never gets into that. Now, that's all that abstract stuff, isn't it? Like, those are the things that can come in with, and the whole point is to recognize a pattern is what I'm coming up with. And that the pattern idea is just that I can make some sense of this life. And I can predict things because I have a history of how they used to go. And then this is just, in most cases, I don't know, I just believe it's kind of forced.
Yeah.
In other words, we're forcing the same thing to happen again and again by building this conceptual pattern.
But I always like to get to the root, like, what does that give the mind? And is it satisfied with whatever that service is giving it? Because I noticed that there's only one mind, but most of them, are not deeply content and satisfied and like Flash upstairs. So I always like to ask the mind, what would satisfy you forever? Or what are you really seeking in all the structures and the figuring everything out, And it's very honest, the mind, when you ask it these questions. So it's like we're giving satsang to the mind, yeah, rather than waiting for it to unwind in apparent time and all that.
Definitely patterns are, you have to create time to have a pattern. So, I mean, you have to wait for some, the whole unwinding scenario becomes possible. And then, what does it give to the mind? To me, I would just say it gives substance. Because without any labels, images just come and go. They just flow, because now you're looking at a tree, now you're looking at a bird, now you're walking down the street. And those images, I mean, if you were just, well, I don't know, I don't want to say pure presence or anything like that, but I mean, if you're just not doing your mind trip and trying to fit it all in, I don't think there would be any recall on any of that.
Yeah, but I wonder if the mind received that training in school. Do you know what I mean? If it was trained in school to
Boy, that's a lot of
create-
training, because it's
It is a lot
so
of
good
training.
at it.
Yeah.
It's so good at it. I was going to just say that's its nature.
No, because it's not. If it's its nature, then it would be that way for all beings. But in certain cultures, supposedly, their minds don't function like that. Yeah. So right behind any imprinting or conditioning or even habits, the mind is just pure, present, still intelligence. And so just like a muscle has found a certain habit, yeah, and it'll send signals that it doesn't like that habit anymore, and it sends signals to this awareness that we are. So to the mind in its restlessness or discontent or dissatisfaction is sort of sending signals to the resident sage that we all are, saying, hey, show me my true nature because this is getting a little bit much.
So you say this hurts, huh?
Right. Yeah, because how strange. In school, I mean, this could be just my experience, but I was taught to pull in the open intelligence, to train it to really make distinctions, compare, and then wisdom was kind of purported that was how you sifted through everything and compared and everything, and then you'd get to the heart of the matter. And that wasn't really my experience. So I noticed that when I invite the mind to see its true nature, to relax open, all of a sudden there's this satisfaction, this and its awareness is keener, and it actually can kind of invoke whatever it needs to know from within itself, from within the stillness. And I think that's its deepest pleasure, is to know itself also as consciousness, to know it has ultimate value no matter what information it accumulates or whatever talents it has. And when it knows that, it's like, oh, I knew that. Yeah, that's what I've been looking for. Because the great promise is, in Western culture, is accumulate a lot of information, a lot of wisdom, and then your value will be increased.
Yeah, okay. The Western culture says accumulate a lot of wisdom, accumulate a lot of experiences.
And stuff.
And accumulate a lot of stuff.
And then you'll have
But I mean,
extra
basically,
value.
that all comes from one thing, and that's what you could call a belief in incompleteness.
Very true.
It's like, I mean, I'm needy. And so then that's why I say the mind is its nature is to go out and categorize and search, because it's all based on the foundation of I'm needy.
Right.
And for that moment when you say, okay, well, for this minute I'm just an experiment, or otherwise just have an experience that's really, lately I've been saying, like when your grandson comes by or something, because when your son comes by, you could be thrown into a lot of neediness about how am I going to raise this kid and how am I going to get him, I'm going to start a college fund for him right now, and I'm, but when your grandson comes by, you might just be blown away and say, wow, this kid is cool. And then you're not needy.
Yeah.
And then your mind just goes to something peaceful, right? I mean, it's just, and so then I'm saying that, I guess I'm saying that the mind is not the one that's satisfied. The mind is just a tool that when you call out neediness, the mind salutes and goes to work.
Yeah.
And
but
then,
I wonder where it came up with this identification with deficiency. And this is just the result of the inquiry here, is that it saw itself as formless. And before language moves, it has very few qualities that are in any fullness or any manifestation. And then it goes to school, and the projection is you really have to learn some stuff, because then you can have value and, you'll get respect and everything.
I don't know, you and I ought to start a school for sure, because, like then we're putting in a lot of stuff on the school, but I mean the parents, and I mean we all believe that, I don't know, I mean I've seen it sometimes when people and their kids, and they're really ruthless to their kids, but in a very nice way, but I mean they're totally brainwashing them, right? And they're totally convinced that they're doing the very best to get them ready even sooner.
Absolutely.
They're going to be,
well, it's coming
they're going to be
from
advanced.
worried love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's total love.
Yeah.
In the meantime,
But what if the mind could know its absolute unshakable value just as it is right now, and that nothing could enhance that, then it can rest.
I suppose I have a definition that the mind is just a tool, and it's just a being that's going to know.
Yeah, but a tool is an object.
Yeah.
But see, this is how also humanity treats nature, something to be used. Like, sometimes I drive through the wilderness and you get these big signs and it says land of many uses, because before just fallow wilderness, people didn't
use,
really
right?
honor it because we can't run cattle here or whatever.
Right.
And now so it has to sort of make a statement. Okay, this, even though it's natural and it hasn't been touched, it still has value.
Many uses, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we even say that, we project that on the Amazon, that the green reserve of the planet Earth is making oxygen for us, and it has a use, right?
Yeah. So, but that's the only way they could get to folks.
Get humans to back off
That's
of it,
right? Trust
Let's
me,
stay with this now.
This.
Exactly what did you say? Land of many uses. It blew me away when you said that. But I mean, this is just our ideas. Everything is for us.
That's it, and it's sovereignty and it's hierarchy, and it's actually arrogant in a old-fashioned way. It's like, from the wilderness's point of view, if the wilderness could notice, and it probably does because it's the same supreme intelligence, the human tribe, the wilderness would go, whoa.
Whoa. But they don't have a Bible, see? If the Bible was written for the wilderness and it said you have dominance over mankind, the Bible says
You're taller.
we got dominance over the wilderness, right?
Yeah, but it's just so funny. It's like this real confusion about value. Real confusion about.
So even the wilderness doesn't have dominance. It's just symbiosis.
Yeah, there's in absolute unity. There's nothing higher or lower. Every termite has the equal value of a tractor or a cello or that's pretty amazing to notice that. As we stomp around, go, oops, sorry. It's so great. I was driving down Fifth Avenue, I guess, in New York, and I was in a cab. I love cabs because, you're in the back and you can just be spacious and just notice, and you get great people watching in New York, right? And I was noticing that the gaze was being drawn to certain people on the street, and there were so many different kinds of people. And there was a noticing of that, and a really old lady, or an apparent bum, or some really beautiful person, and some skipping children, and a lot of the friends that were walking by, it wasn't interested in, apparently, or wasn't being drawn by. And all of a sudden, stillness said to me, everyone is equal value. And it was so interesting because it started to relax all these very, very subtle hierarchies of value, like based on appearance or function or energy levels or whatever. And it was such a beautiful choice for it to reveal that absolute truth. What a perfect place, New York, where, there was hundreds of people, and from every single different expression and age, and it was one of the great moments of my life, because I went, wow, everyone is equal value, because it just dropped so many beliefs in that moment. It was just great moment.
I've kind of resisted the internet, and then in one sense I've adopted it and really kind of, maybe even in my own little way, some kind of a leader. But I've kind of resisted instant news and things like that, and I used to tell myself that pain is everywhere in the earth, And if that's what floats your boat, you can have as much as you want.
Mm.
And I can resonate very well with pain. I mean, I'm not really cut off, and so I do way better not to look at it in that sense, unless I can be. Maybe I don't know why I'm so deeply moved. I mean, maybe it's some kind of a resistance to it.
No, it's the nature of who you are is deeply moved.
In other words, I can say that. Oh, just to give an example, I can't even watch movies. Because every movie's got some kind of a violent thing in there, some kind of useless thing in there, and I just as soon throw a rock through the TV set or stomp out of the movie house.
Yeah.
Than just say invite that in, because I just feel like it's it's just what I'm saying, because somehow I build up justification to how I storied the whole thing.
But it's your nature as compassion and as love to be that touched. And it's actually why there's so many movements to not be present, or invitations by the conditioning or the defenses, because we are so deeply touched. So the conditioning tries to defend this naturalness from being devastated.
Right. I mean, it's just like what I was saying before, so self-confidently about vulnerability and as tied to pain, and here I am tying this, viewing world pain as also hurtful to me. And so then I realized something too really big, just maybe just yesterday, or really just a short time ago, and I realized that I had this whole set of beliefs that around. Basically, I've adopted karma and destiny as a way to ensure my separateness. Because if I have if there's no pain in my life, I could say, well, that's my good karma. I don't have any pain, and then I want to keep it that way. So then I would cut out anything that was painful, right? And then I would never see that maybe that energy could be even. What should I call it? That energy that seems to want to come up and be shock and maybe even outrage if it's somebody doing something to somebody. But if it's just a natural thing, it would still be a very huge sadness. But somehow that energy comes up, and that energy probably could be useful. Maybe it could be turned and hey, I could even help those people. But do it somehow not out of anxiety, and somehow do it not out of guilt, and not out of outrage or revenge or all the things that don't work. And so then
it would be fresh then.
I realized how I storied all those things like destiny, and I used them to maintain separateness and protect myself.
Yeah, it's strange stuff, all this, huh?
I get to a point where you start to see that every story you tell somehow is serving you some way to keep you stuck, to keep me, it just explains my behavior in a way that says that's good behavior, keep doing it. And in a way, each one of those interpretations, my worldview somehow puts my lifestyle on a pedestal and says, and actually builds walls around it and makes a fortress out of it by these words.
Yeah, it's curious, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
All very self-serving.
Yeah, but it's also impersonal functioning. It doesn't refer to you. It's just these strange coping strategies that the mind came up with for shepherding or herding or protecting this precious naturalness, So I think I notice that when I thank those functions, they just rest.
Thank?
Thank.
Oh, I thank them, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know that. I've heard you thank some functions before. I hadn't thought of thanking that one, but I don't feel too guilty about it or anything like that. And impersonalization is something that really makes total sense to me. Total sense. And then I love just to be telling this to you, and then I'm telling it to you, and I'm putting it
Yeah.
on this table over
Yeah.
here, and then everybody could say, "Well, karma. What do you mean? Karma's real? You know? I
But
mean,
that's
I
what's
do
so
have good karma.
beautiful.
You know?" And then
Yeah, but we want to liberate all that stuff, so to speak. Maybe liberate isn't the right word, but to look deeply into its true nature, and you're noticing that destiny and karma are ideas that actually have a lot of group agreement that are keeping them afloat. But really,
it's building the
none of
whole
it's
structure of
really
haves and
true.
have-nots.
Yeah.
It's doing. I mean, it's really doing everything in the world that we're saying we're shocked at, and we're doing it, and 100% full steam on.
Mm. Mm. Ah, even karma is exhausted. Imagine having to keep
We
track
don't
of
even
all
need it,
these.
you know. It's just another
No.
pattern
Yeah.
that mind just figured out, so that
It's
it
just
could,
another
for what, you know,
idea.
because it was not complete, right?
Mm.
I'm needy, so I need the pattern of karma,
Mm.
and that'll just keep me fixed in my, in my case, semi-rich lifestyle, and somebody else's case, a semi-poor lifestyle.
Well, here we are back to the only reason all that needs to be added or assumed it's needed to be added into the openness is because it has no form. So there's like, it's almost an embarrassment. You know, sometimes I imagine, of course, this is imagination, which is also formless. But I have this fun imagining that one day when the mind crystallized enough, it looked down within the body, so to speak, and went, oh no, there's nothing there. How am I going to work with this? How am I going to turn it into a productive member of society?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it
There's
went,
nothing there.
I'm going to have to give it likes, dislikes. Okay, you like broccoli. Oh, you like potatoes. Ooh, you do not like, what are those things? Anchovies. Ooh, no. And then all of a sudden there's a character that arises out of this open no thing. Starts with likes, dislikes, good, bad, and then, but it needs, this is so funny, it's like a script supervisor, it needs constant repetition because the apparent actor keeps going fast and empty, forgetting their lines. Well, how was I supposed to react here? Oh, I'm supposed to get really upset. So it's kind of really funny, you know, from the view here. And also, I can see the nobility in all of it and actually the intelligence, but mostly the tragic repercussions and also the humor of it. But because it really did allow me, because I thought I was someone, then I could really experience the full Shakespeare. But if, you know, if I'm a teenager and not thinking I'm Pamela and not having this idea, well, I don't have a boyfriend and that means this and that, you know, without my script supervisor, I wouldn't have had so many like deep, heartful, devastating moments, you know. So that was good. We must have wanted a lot of really Shakespeare.
Well, let's look in the present, and there's a lot of people that are just that age right now, and they're looking down and they're saying, "Gee, what am I going to do with all this space?" You know. And
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Do they have to go through the whole deal of filling it up and then emptying it
I
out
don't know.
later, or I mean, how can they feel confident that this space
Well,
could be
you
whatever
know,
it can be? You know.
yeah, that's a beautiful invitation because you know, that's what's so lovely about having most of the experiences one can have is that you can report back and go, hey, that doesn't add anything to your clarity. It doesn't add any wisdom. It adds street smarts, that's for sure. But it really doesn't enhance your being going through all of that, ups and downs. And because that's the great myth in humanness is like if you live life to the fullest, you'll know your majesty and your dignity and you'll really be big and bold if you really go for it, right? Instead of like you can sit on the bench and know majesty and your dignity and your like innate value. You know, you don't have to go like, okay. And yet there sometimes is an impulse and a longing to live large or to live kind of discreetly and quietly, and that's also resonance, yeah. So, what to do?
I was a certain kind of a guy, you know. So, okay, I had 3 siblings, so there are 4 of us. 2 moved out and 2 stayed home. And so then I wonder if I had stayed home, I wouldn't have really. I wouldn't. Have, I don't. If I project to what that would be like, you know, I would say I would always have some kind of a thorn in my side saying, "Should have gone, but you didn't. Should have gone, but you didn't." Of course, I went out and I did a million things, and they were all, like you say, you didn't need them, right? They didn't add anything. But I mean, somehow
But
they added. I mean, they subtracted. They subtracted that thorn in my side that was a belief that somebody, you know, that people had planted into me that you could have a rich and marvelous life by travel the world and work in lots of fields and, you know, make a certain amount of money enough. And then that thorn would still be, you know, it would always, someone could wiggle that thorn and I would still feel the hurt of it.
Yeah.
You know?
But that maybe that original thorn is somehow I'm not okay just being myself. And if that means, you know, being the world traveler or being, you know, really quiet, retreatant kind of naturally, that thorn basically is a misunderstanding. It's a really original misunderstanding. You know, not honoring yourself, your own uniqueness, and that sort of thing. Some idea of deficiency. We're back at our friend.
Well, I'm the prodigal son, you know. Even the Bible has the whole story is right there, right? So, like, I mean, how does the big brother feel? He probably feels like hell because, like, the younger guy took a lot of money and spent it and did all these great things that's purported to be great. And then the dad said, "Hey, you're still my son." And then, but I did this. I sacrificed, and did he sacrifice or not? We're saying he didn't You didn't sacrifice. You know, you stay-at-homes didn't sacrifice.
Yeah.
You know, and it's what we're saying loud and clear. But I mean, don't believe me. I'm the wrong guy to tell you.
But maybe everybody is the prodigal son.
Daughter.
Yeah. Yeah, and see, doing this is so highly valued in our culture, and it's gorgeous. It's a creative expression, and yet it doesn't add any value to being. It doesn't matter if you're a gardener or if you're the, you know, pick up the dustbins, or if you're a bridge engineer, or if you knit. Value is not enhanced or lost. So that's one of another misunderstanding in our culture, right? You are what you do.
I think we have to go deeper because, like, we don't even know what value is. You know, I mean, we have to say, well,
Nice.
what is value? Because
What is value?
you know, we might think value. A lot of times we say money measures value. So then, of course, that's false. But I mean,
But
I mean,
yeah.
it's held.
I'm wondering if maybe value is also that which doesn't come or go.
Essence is value.
Essence, yes. Yes. Yeah, that's it. I mean, how could you enhance that? Yeah, shine it up.
Oh, yeah. Okay, but you know, the tendency is to say it doesn't come or go, so screw it. You know, it'll be there when I get back. Like it's in the bag, right? You know, so whatever's in the bag, you know, then we go, the mind loves to bag trophies and then go for another one. You know, I got these, why should I stop here? And so then that's a whole nother way of looking at
but
essence.
if it brings natural pleasure and enjoyment, that's totally okay. But if it's bringing suffering, then there's a clue that isn't the resonance for that embodiment. For some embodiments, that's their resonance, and there's a lot of joy moves through.
What? Because I
Well-
kind of went on a tack there, and I kind of like spaced out a little bit.
Well, meaning you said that the mind likes to go bag more trophies. Now, for some people, it's a natural resonance.
To bag more trophies?
Yeah, and there's a joy and deep rest, and it's just their affinity. And somebody else who's mimicking that or thinks they should be like that and suffers, then the clue is in the suffering that that's not their natural resonance. It's sort of like when you play music. the strings will tell you if it's a natural note, and they'll, if there's effort or if there's
Yeah, I get that. But I mean, I
yeah.
feel to say that, okay, somehow bagging trophies is all about objects. In
Mm.
essence, we have to, we said maybe essence. Now, I used the word essence, but you said,
I like that.
okay, but we were talking about what's the value of life. And then we got to make sure we can be real clear that essence is not an object and it can't go in any kind of a bag, you know.
That's good news.
And yeah, yeah, right. And so then it's,
It can't be gained or lost.
yeah.
Yeah.
So then that part is kind of a little tricky because when you say it can't be lost, then people say, well, let's see, I'll just go out and bag a few more.
But
But
see,
I
that's
didn't bag
okay.
the essence, huh?
Yeah, that's okay.
But I got
then.
time. I got infinite time because what can't be lost, I don't have to mess with.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So we're just really playing with noticing, really, because as far as I can tell, wisdom is just noticing what is, and there's a lot of what is to notice, and that's why it's fun because you're going to notice some things that I haven't noticed yet, and vice versa. And
Well, when you say notice what is, I mean, what is the non-objects, and the non-object is essence. So the only thing we can do with essence is notice it
right,
often,
but
hopefully
also
often, right?
this is has form and essence, and I know you know that they're not two, right? So what's kind of fun is there's a natural savoring also of form. Yeah. And knowing it's also formless. To me, that is really fun. I love knowing that nothing is what it appears to be. And occasionally I'm convinced by an appearance or
You know, in other words,
happening.
everything is essence to you.
Right,
Every
yeah.
last thing is essence, and
Yeah, that's
a
it.
part of your focus sees that.
Next interview will be with the plant. And you could like hook it up to all these like things and then ask it questions. So how do you view humans? It's going, what's humans? How are you feeling? Ever the same, it says. Though I could use a little water. Want a little water? No, it's good.
I think it's good. I think it's good.
I mean, that's me. I mean, I'm like, I love peeking behind form and function because it's just, or into its heart. I'm so amazed by that. So amazed.
People claim they can measure some things that are very, 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 very subtle.
They probably can.
And so then we're even, you know, maybe we're getting into a realm where talking to plants is actually a possibility. I mean, just like when you do muscle testing, you know,
Yeah.
with yourself, or with like this, and then you talk to yourself, but you're kind of talking to your body or your essence because
Yeah.
what's doing the muscle testing. So then you
Same, yeah.
you probably could, you know, talk to plants and ask them questions. You know, you could ask them like a sage, if you had the address of where they're sending their messages.
That would be really great. We could say, hey, do you guys know? Actually, they already do. I was about to ask them, do you guys know a way to do alchemy with pollution? And actually, these guys are experts on that.
They're the number one doer.
They're the
Yeah,
number one alchemists. Yeah,
pollution alchemists.
pretty amazing.
So then it's not pollution. To them, it's great food.
That's right. Gray water. Yum. Give me more of that.
Dessert.
You guys are weird. No. Sorry, that was rude. Oh. Silly. Ah,
You know, there is a purportedly, and I guess a lot of people agree and believe in it. There is a whole huge wide field called paranormal, and then there's some kind of knowing or communication that we don't know how it really works by at least our science. But those that are into paranormal know exactly how it works. They're doing it all the time. Right? And so, you know, this is kind of like those things like Rupert Sheldrake when he talks about the morphic field. So whatever this morphic field is, it's, as I get it, it's not a physical field. but yet we're all in it.
Yeah. Yep. We are all it.
We are it.
Yeah. It's pretty wild stuff, all of this. But I like it, yeah. I mean, I don't know much about science or detail stuff, but I heard that there is a function in the brain that graciously limits perception of what is to that which could be so-called handleable. And if that function in the brain that limits perception would stop limiting perception because of the absolute infinity of all there is, that would be a pretty amazing instant download that might fry the system. So I love how these beautiful balancing functions are
Right.
in.
Yeah, we don't even have to believe it, or it doesn't even have to be true. But the idea
Yeah.
that some kind of a needle valve or some kind of a regulator, it's kind of typical in all kind of machinery too,
Yeah.
is a good thing.
It's a good thing, yeah.
Yeah. And then whatever the regulator lets through, then that's what's right for us at this moment.
Yeah. It's all very gracious.
Right. Somehow in spirituality, we get the idea that there's some pure state and that it would somehow be better to be there. But we've just said, by the fact that exactly what you said, is that the vastness is a frying experience, for a limited pan, or a little limited fry pan. It can't take the vastness. So then, thank God there's a needle valve, and the needle valve may be called our language, and our kind of abstracted interpretation of everything.
Or the senses, yeah. Well, it's fascinating, all of this stuff. I love it. But are we really a little frying pan?
No, but to say that thing just says that, you're not, in one way it says you're not incomplete, and that every time or every appearance of being incomplete is right for you. And so then you can just be happy with that. Be very happy with that,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, the intelligence, it knows itself so intimately in all of its embodiments. Yeah. It's very wise. Wide-ranging conversation.
I'm just crazy, I guess. I don't know why I say all these things or why I want to go in all these directions, and I really don't think they're all that helpful.
Well, but there's also within you just have a natural joy and interest. Yeah? And who would want to limit or contain that, Like telling a fountain, quit splashing, quit. I like asking the stillness stuff because I'm actually kind of lazy.
Tell me the stillness stuff.
Well, I just ask stillness whatever I'm curious about. And I don't have to ferret it out on my own. And if I'm in satsang, I ask everybody else what they're noticing. I'm getting really lazy. So what are you noticing? It's fun. Because we're all so unique and we're all drawn to certain things. And I find noticing uniquely.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm doing the same thing, but I'm not doing it formally. I'm not saying, and the only time anything good comes is out of a halt point, or a point where it screeches to a halt and that goes nowhere, and then boing, something pops out. So in a way, I think I feel like I understand what you're saying there.
It's always a circle. Each one of us benefits and blesses each other just by what we've noticed and what we share. And even if it's not spoken, it's still downloaded, so to speak. That's even. simpler.
Somehow with me it kind of boils down to what I would call an anxiety level. And then anxiety is just a way to watch maybe wholeness or incompleteness. And then many times it seems to be attached to a belief structure or a story. And I think you can monitor that and it becomes real obvious. And I used to think that stress was no big deal. And now I think it's like everything. It's really, it's kind of like what allows stillness, the absence of stress, and allows peace, and it disallows, or it keeps busyness going, and keeps conflict going, and it keeps separation going, the anxiety part.
Yeah. Well,
And
tension it's so beautiful in the word pretense. For there to be pretense and projection of other, there has to be tension. So that's why most actually spiritual practices from all the ancient traditions are all about returning the body to a state of relaxation. Because then in that naturalness there is just an effortless noticing of what is. So all the, the whirling dervishes and all the, 10,000 prostrations and all the chanting for hours into the night, it all just brings everything back to just like a deep, unmoving exhaustion / relaxation. So it's all pretty sneaky, all that stuff, because it dissolves the tension in the body. And then it's so evident, all is well. There's no problem. Everything's made of actually, even tension to me is remarkable because it has a huge strength in it. And huge strength points to that it has to be being fed by deep relaxation. So here's a circle of the appearance and what's really true. So it's fascinating. I'm just a junior detective.
Yeah, I like that. I like to be a junior detective too.
It's fun.
But
really fun.
how about this? Let's reverse it.
Okay.
Let's just say that there's one of the largest communities on Earth. Well, in a way, is 80 billion cells. And lately, I've been calling them Richard.
Okay.
And so then these guys work in harmony pretty good. It's a pretty good community. It's doing the best it can. But the one limitation they have is they only have one radio station. And that radio station is always saying, "Doom, doom, you can't get it. We're not good enough. Ah!" What are you doing in front of me? Get away from me, And that radio station keeps blaring that, 24/7, now going on 68 years. And if you could just tune in another channel, all that relaxation would be happening without any prostrations.
That's so true.
Without any whirling.
Yeah. So where is it getting its juice? Because that was very passionate expression of doom and watch out. And where is it getting its juice? Invite it to track itself back. Because it looks out here for safety and security, rather than returning to its naturalness. It's never going to find safety and security out here, the constancy, the felt sense of that, But within itself, it can. So I just invite, that's your last devotee inside that hasn't gotten it, so to speak. So just invite it to look, who are you? Wow, you got big, it has big mojo. It has big juice. Maybe safety isn't its deepest longing.
Well, there's so many things that we already talked about that are is kind of built on a web. It's held up on a web. Okay, probably of separation. you know. And like I was just sharing that I was wholeheartedly adopting, you know, wasn't too much in karma and you know, and destiny, as far as thinking that I couldn't make any changes, and I wasn't thinking of karma as like a reward or punishment system. But somehow I didn't even care what it was. It was just supporting my separation and
Yes.
saying that I had good karma, so why bother?
Okay.
And
But
everyone else, you know. So then that's part of the web that really just keeps me looking out for number one, because I believe there is a number one
but
from that.
there's actually no web, and there's just like maybe 4 misunderstandings, and there's no time involved. It's really not a big deal, all this. So there's a misunderstanding that separation enhances its safety. Now there's beautiful truth hidden within that misunderstanding. So just thank separation for keeping you safe all these years. If you interview it, it just says, I want to give you space, man. I want to give you space.
We want to give you a buffer, right?
Yeah, I want to give you some space. Now, who it's giving space to is spaceless space. So when it sees that and you see that, it's actually darling.
So then you say, well, I am space, so I don't need any space.
That's right. I mean, you can't get more spacious than you are. And you certainly don't need a contracted function offering you space by pushing so-called others away. Yeah? So
okay, that's one misunderstanding. That's a beauty.
Okay, so here, next.
You had to say 4. I didn't invent the 4 part, you know. So you go, oh.
So here, the other thing is that a misunderstanding about the embodiment called Richard or the embodiment called Pamela. The dossiers were written under stress, so to speak. The dossiers were recorded in moments of stress or pressure. They're not written in, like, you know, Richard, when he's deeply relaxed and he's gardening, he just, the man is pure spaceless space. There's nothing in the dossier about that, yeah? So the whole history, the personal history of a Pamela or a Richard already is a biased, stressed misrepresentation of what is. So we can also thank that.
That's really a great realization, because there's just no history writer when everything is fine.
That's
right?
a good point. There's nobody going, wow, that you just made the best tea. We're going to add that to your file. Great tea. Fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually the recording replaying function goes into gear under pressure.
Yeah, and I would just deny it anyhow, you know, like that part of me that is the historian would deny, oh, that tea, nothing, you know, no big deal.
That's it. So, you know, that whole mechanism of identification, you know, it's not an error in consciousness. It was to gift the unique embodiments with the fullness of experience, and it's gifted us that, so we can thank it. And then that file just relaxes back into its nature, which is the same spaceless space, which has no history. Because history, I mean, it's actually a law of nature. History would have to arise and be born from something that has no history. Yeah, I mean, it would just be how it works.
Well, I mean, history is the pattern that I was saying that we just made up, right? And then somehow we made it up based on the way we look at things, the way we interpret things, and the way we interpreted things yesterday, or the way our family logic has done it, or the way our culture does it, or somehow our base agreements, which are basically spring out of our language system.
But it doesn't have any existence.
Correct.
Because it's formless. Yeah, so then you can just kind of tickle anything that has apparent stress or form, and it just goes, like the gig is up, like, because you're right, I have no form, I don't really, same presence.
No, I like that a lot.
Mischief,
I mean, I seem to be able to do that anyhow, whether I'm tickling it or just somehow being more harsh and dismissing it, you know, and saying, get lost, you bum. You know?
Yeah. So here we have, if we don't access thought, memory, or sensation, we have no history. Yeah. And if we don't use the body as evidence of Richard or Pamela, then we really can't find an individual separate from the all. This allows us that experience and then also returns back to just being same, formless, intelligent presence. Yeah. So we actually, that's such a blessing. We get to have it all. We get to have the full object, apparent history, personal thing, and then we get to have the full return. Oh, it's a big party.
Did we say 4 things, or?
I can't remember.
You can't remember? I don't know. I think they were.
I can't remember.
Did we say 2 or 3? I don't know.
We hit separation, the whole personal thingy. I can't remember. That's the only problem with any sort of structure. They all dissolve, even lists. Everything returns back to 0. This is fun, Richard. Thank you.
It really is. It really is fun.
Thank you. Good. So until next timelessness, how's that?
Until next timelessness, right?
Good.
Well, you heard it, everybody. I mean, what did you think of that? Every once in a while, we get some good traffic down here, I'll tell you. So, you know, just keep watching, and we'll keep coming up with something that'll astound you. So thanks for being here, and thank you, Pamela.
Thank you.